Here we're going to say a few words about the reliabilist position that Alvin Goldman defends in his paper. So the key concept to understand his position is to understand reliability. And this is a natural, everyday concept we have. And the way he's using it, he's just thinking, look, something's reliable if it gets things right most of the time. So things like thermometers, gas gauges, turnstiles, those are the sorts of things that can be reliable. A thermometer is reliable if it gets the temperature right most of the time. Gas gauge is reliable if it most of the time when it reads full, the gas tank's full. When it reads empty, gas tank's empty. That's what it is for those things to be reliable, just to get things right most of the time. Now, we don't just care about these things like gas gauges and thermometers. We care about what's going on in our mind. And in particular, we care about reliable belief-forming processes. So what are these? Well, Goldman thinks these are things like perception, memory, certain sorts of reasoning, introspection, maybe testimony, processes by which we form beliefs that get things right most of the time. They get us true beliefs most of the time. That's what it would be to be a reliable belief-forming process. Now, it's important to keep in mind that there are grades of reliability. So it's not the case that something's either reliable or not, the way a light switch is either on or off. Things can be more or less reliable in certain conditions. So a thermometer can be more or less reliable. Thermometer is more reliable, say, when the temperature is under 100 degrees than when it is over that. Certain sorts of thermometers that's true of, like the ones in most of our houses that those thermostats, they don't read temperatures super high. They might be really bad at getting the temperature right when it's over 400 degrees. They just have no idea at all. Perceptual processes can be this way too, or introspection or reasoning. So it might be that perceptual processes are more reliable from 20 feet than from 200. So if something's 20 feet away from me, I'm pretty good at telling the way things are. It's pretty reliable. But those processes are not very reliable when it comes to looking at things 200 feet away. They might be totally unreliable when we're looking at things 600 feet away. So this is what we're thinking about, this notion of reliability, getting things right most of the time, but we also need to note that there are grades of this. Things can be more or less reliable. So what does reliabilism itself say? Well, it says that if S's belief results from a reliable cognitive belief-forming process, then S's belief is justified. Now, I know Goldman goes on and develops some details. He has multiple parts of his definition. We're not going to be too concerned with that because this is the real core of the position. What makes a belief justified for Goldman is that it's formed, it results from a reliable belief-forming process, one that gets things right most of the time. And one important thing to note here is that this is an externalist notion of justification. What matters is the reliability of the process. That need not be accessible to us. It might be that I can't know if it's reliable or not. I can't be sure. I can't even have justified beliefs about it. I might not be able to, there might be no justification for me to access. It might simply be justified in virtue of being formed by a reliable process. And so that's what makes this an externalist picture of justification. One thing that follows from this notion of grades of reliability is that a belief can be more or less justified on Goldman's picture. He has a very easy way to make sense of that. A belief's more justified if it results from a more reliable belief-forming process, less justified if it results from a less reliable belief-forming process. So that's reliabilism.